Once again, we have been on the introduction to JavaScript. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to believe we have covered the definition, right? We have also covered how to set up your development environment for JavaScript coding, right? Now, for those of us that were in that class, how can you define JavaScript? Those that were not around, pay good attention. How do we define JavaScript as a programming language? Quickly, who is trying? And speak out. It's a high-level interpreted programming language, okay? Used for client what? Scripting. Okay, that is a grammar that some of us do not understand. When you say client scripting, what does that mean in a layman term? If he doesn't know it, another person can assist. In programming, the word client and server side, can anybody differentiate them? Is the user's end, which is also known as what? The front end, right? Okay, so indirectly, he's saying that JavaScript is one of the most used programming language for developing the user's what? End of websites. Can anybody tell us specifically the role of JavaScript in website building? For I can't hear you. Can anybody hear him? I'm hearing action. Okay, to implement action and to make your website what? Interactive. You are still blowing grammar. There are some persons that do not understand what is called interactivity. To make it what? Jump. Interactivity means what? Communication, right? Communication. That is your website contents are able to what? Communicate. All right. I told us that for you to code with JavaScript, you do not need to install an extension. How many of us know that there are some programming languages that you want to code with? If you are using this IDE, the Visual Studio Code, you will need to install what? An extension. If you are coding with Python, it will not work automatically. You have to install Python 3 in your system before you can even install the extension. So the extension of JavaScript is already built in what? In Visual what? Studio Code, just like HTML. All these ones we do not need to import their what? Extensions. They are inbuilt. But I just want us to know that it is not all the time you are going to write a language with these editors that you have the extensions already installed. Okay, so another thing we learned in that class was how to create JavaScript what? File, external file, and also link it with the renderer or the rendering language. Remember, I used the word rendering the other time. I told us that we cannot actually output JavaScript functions directly. So we need a container to display those actions to the users via the web browser, right? And the container we use in rendering JavaScript's action is what? The elements, let me use the word element. The elements we use in rendering JavaScript action is what? Scripts. Scripts. Scripts is the code now. We are talking about if you write JavaScript code, can you display it on the browser directly without one particular language element carrying it? The HTML, that is the reason why we ID what? An element. So let me just quickly set up a new file briefly. And for those that were not around, this is an opportunity for you to grab it. So we actually started by creating a new folder called what? Java what? Scripts in that class, right? So we created a new folder, just like the way we have been learning other languages. So for example, I'm still going to work with this folder. So I'm going to call this folder in my development environment, which is my Visual Studio Code in this case. And then I'll go to folder and then select folder, open folder. Right. So from here, I will navigate to where I have the projects folder, JavaScript on desktop. Then I'll look for it. Then just tap it and then click on select our folder. So that will automatically call in your project folder. So I have some file that I have created inside probably when I was teaching Python online. So let me just clear them so that you will understand how you are expected to start with from scratch. So this is how your file structure look like. Then you make sure that you are in the parent folder. The parent folder in this case is what? JavaScript. The child folder, the direct child folder is JS, right? And then I told us in that class that we can actually communicate JavaScript to the render element or the rendering element, such as what? HTML, either with the external method or what? Internal. And I said that in our next class, I am going to also show us how to work with internal what? JavaScript coding. So, but let me just go with the external first. So the external means that you have a different what? JavaScript what? File that is totally separated from what? Your HTML what? File. Just like the way we learned it in CSS. So for that reason, I have created a folder called what? JS. So if I want to see what I have inside it, I will just click, which means that I already have what? JS what? File created. But like I said, I want to wipe off everything so that I will know how to start. So I will first of all go into the what? The JS folder by ensuring that the arrow face what? Down, and then navigate to this icon, add a new file, and then name it, for example, index dot what? JS. So JS is the extension of writing what? Java scripts. All right. So after you have created the file and you have named it, just select outside in order to acknowledge the file. Now, we do not need to activate any what? Default code like we did in the case of HTML. Okay, so we leave it blank. Now, I can go back to the main folder, the main directory, which is JavaScript, and create HTML what document in order to help me to render, to display the JavaScript code I'll be writing here. So let me just create a file called what? Index.what? HTML in this case. And then this is my HTML file. Of course, when working with HTML, we do know that there is an inbuilt what? HTML simple file structure, where HTML have already defined the document what? Shape. Then all we need to do is to invoke them out by typing what? HT, right? And then now this HT that you type can only come out where you have saved a file with what? What? HTML. So now I'll click on HTML5. So let me zoom out so that we can see the entire document. I just hope that you are still seeing it on the screen. All right. So now for us to connect, so the next step is for us to connect the JS file with what? The HTML file. Why? Because we are going to be modeling HTML from JavaScript. Does anybody understand that code? Just like you saying that you are going to be modeling HTML element in CSS, where we have different what? Method of modeling what? HTML elements, while in CSS. What are the methods again? We have 3 of them that I have taught us. How do you model HTML elements while you are in CSS? Because that's the concept. You said inline. Is it inline? I know if I use the term that you are familiar with, you understand what I'm saying. I just want to be a bit technical. How do we model HTML elements from CSS? Okay, let me change the term. How do you select HTML elements in CSS? By ID, by class, and by what? The tag what? Name, right? We can actually use by attributes, but we are going to get that here in JavaScript. Now, I just connected us back so that we'll link it up. That same thing you were doing when you were about to communicate CSS to HTML. We also have it in what? JavaScript, when you are working with what? External what? JavaScript. Even internal, except you are writing what? Inline JavaScript. That is the only place where you escape what? Selecting what? Elements with an ID or what? Class. Because at that point, you are writing the code or the script directly in the HTML. So the HTML will no longer find it difficult to locate because the file is already written what? Inside it. I hope someone get that clear. So now we also have it in JavaScript. In JavaScript, we have to start by connecting. Since we are working with external JavaScript, we are going to start by linking it up to this HTML. And I explained something in the last class that whenever you are linking, there is hierarchy that is going to be followed here based on JavaScript is a core programming language. HTML is not a core what? Programming language. It's just what? A markup language that helps us to create content in a web page. So now that we are blending a markup language, an action language, then there is issue of who is senior among them. So JavaScript want to say that no, HTML have to go first. That is, once somebody launched this website on the browser, he or she should see what? The default appearance of what? The HTML first. Before I bring on what? My actions on that what? Element. That is what makes it what? Dynamic. Because at first, the document was in a particular position. After some minutes or second, the appearance changes. That is the dynamic we are talking about. Things changes. in any website where JavaScript was used. This can never be static or true. All right, so for that, I said always there is a tag. There is a tag you are to call just before the closing of the body tag, right? And what's the name of the tag? Script. There are two of them. One is the one that does not have source. Then the second one is the one that have source. You can see that there are two different things. Can you see the differences? I don't know if you are seeing the screen very well. Okay. Now, when you are linking external JavaScript, this is the one you are to use. But if I want to write my JavaScript internal, which means that what? Both the HTML document and the JavaScript in the same file, but in different word section. Just like CSS, we added it to what? To the head, right? But in this case now, if you want to write JavaScript internal, this is where you are going to bring it. All your JavaScript will be here. Your HTML will come before what? The script. But for a standard that we are dealing with now, I'll click here, then slash, and then reference the name of what? The JavaScript I created. So with this, I have automatically what? Connected the JavaScript and what? The HTML. So what is the reason why you created HTML and JavaScript? JavaScript is to add action to elements that was created or is created with what? HTML. So which means that ordinarily, except you want to use it, but I understand that JavaScript is mainly for web what? Development. It's mainly for web development, which means that there has to be element before you can determine what? The action on that element. All right, so this is what we did indirectly last time. Now, today I want to bring in new topics. So you write JavaScript variables. JavaScript variable. So anytime you are learning any programming language, you start with what? Variable. Variable. So let me go to my JavaScript file and use comments. So this is the comments notation in JavaScript. Two word line. You know, in CSS, it was a different word symbol. But it's that same keyboard that you use. That's the same control and what? // Only that if you press it in JavaScript, you get this. If you press it in HTML, you know, you get a different word. Good. So we need to take note of this. So I'll be using comment to explain what I'm teaching us this morning. So what we want to start with now is what? JavaScript variable. JavaScript variables. Now, there is order of learning programming or coding. There's order. The order is that once you have set up your development environment, the next thing to know is what? Comments. And that is what I've explained comment before. I don't want to go by defining what comment is. Or is there anybody who is still having issue knowing what comment is in programming generally? Do I have such person here? The answer should be, Okay, you don't know what comment is. Okay, comments in all programming languages or in programming, whenever we use the word comment, it means just narration, which is used to explain your code either to yourself or to what? To the third party. Comments are not executable. The language does not mind what? The comment. It does not test the comment. They are just for you. And I want you to develop the habit of working with comments, whether you are coding with Python, whether you are coding with any language, is one of the attributes of a programmer. And I specifically explained something last time, that if we are working as a team, right? Because tech must be as what? We must work as what? Team, no matter how. You must have your team. You must build your team. Never work alone in technology. Otherwise, you'll be outdated within the next what? Second. You need other people information. Can somebody tell us the reason why
teaming is very important in technology. So if I have such a person here that is trying to isolate work alone so that the person can repent, can anybody tell us why it is good for you to team with other professionals? One good reason. Collective idea, okay. Nobody what? Knows all. Nobody knows all. Now, let me tell you how, no matter I am good, no matter how I am good with what I'm doing right now, I can still enter someone's class and act like what? Novice. Hope you know that. In an area that I'm not what? Conversant, no matter how. The only thing is that I'll bring some level of expertise in grabbing faster than what? Somebody who has not what? Been in the field. But of a fact, the research I make is different from the research you are making on a daily basis. The informations you are coming across, they are quite different from the one I am coming across. So how do you think I will know everything? So I need your own, and then you need my own. That is how we grow in what? Technology. So as you are in the class, as you are learning together, build your team. Build your team. Don't graduate and say you don't have any fellow developer that you can relate to when you are having what issue. Okay, so I am automatically your what? Your mentor. That one you cannot negotiate it. If you like, pass out without getting my number. No problem. But normally, anybody that train you should be your first what? Mentor. But see, build other what? Person, because only him cannot offer you all the what? The assistance you need tomorrow when you start handling projects. Okay, so now let's go back to the variable. Let's look at what is variable, right? In JavaScript, quickly. In JavaScript, variables are used to store and manipulate data. Variables are used to store and manipulate data. In JavaScript, variables are used to store and manipulate what? Data. So there are two key words there. Are used to store and what? Manipulate data. So that is, a variable is a storage, right? Do we get that right? A variable is what? A storage first. Now, why did we attach the aspect of manipulation? Because the value that are kept in the variable can be what? Manipulated. So let me break it down in a way that if they wake you up from sleep anytime and they ask you what is variable, this is not what you should even read your note after this class again to know what variable is. Variable is like this. Every programming language has a library where it stores what? Keywords. Your phone that you purchase comes with settings. Have you asked yourself, those settings, are they not stored within the phone? But where those settings are stored is different from where the file, the video, the audio, you will start creating, storing that phone. Is it not true? They can never be in one place. In computer, where the settings of your laptop are stored is called what? Complementary meta-oxide semiconductor, which is called what? CMOS or BIOS. That is why, except you are an engineer, you will use your computer 100 years, you will never even know that there is a place where the mouse, the command that is governing the mouse, the command that is making the keyboard to work, where they are stored, you will not even see, except you are an engineer. Or probably you are a cybersecurity expert that will have been taught how to set your visualization or any other related program that has connection with going there to do one or two things. So the same thing in when you say Python as a programming language, it has its own what? Library. It has where it has stored some functions. And that place is called what? Library. The same thing with JavaScript. So now you want to write a program, for example, you want to build a calculator. And that calculator, you want to publish it in your website. You know, there are some things, see, creativity is very, very required here. Most of the things that you'll be learning that might look basic, if you sit down you can develop something what very professional with it. Do you know that you can create and embed a calculator in your own website just to help, and maybe your website is an e-commerce website. We are not using a AutoCAD now. I'm talking about pure calculator. Integrating it somewhere within your web page just to assist your users that in case you publish a product 1,000, another one 2,000, and somebody wants to know how much 3 of them will cost him, instead of him calling up his phone to punch, you have already made available what? Calculator. That might be an advantage that will make somebody to what? Want to be using your website, because your website is now what? User what? Friendly. So the informations you need to create that calculator, I want to ask you, are they already built in JavaScript? Yes. Who says yes? Okay, let me just cite one of them. Let's say for you to build that calculator, you will need to store a placeholder that will be used to collect what? The user's what? Input. So if it is not already in JavaScript, for you to bring it, for you to acknowledge it, you have to use variable. So I'm going somewhere, so you know why variable is important. So variable, you can write it down. Let me give you this practical definition of variable. Variable can also be defined as a system used by programmers to introduce external information into the program memory. I hope somebody gets it, because I don't think I'll be able to define it like that. I'm not reading it from anywhere. Used to introduce external information into the program memory. If you like, don't catch this one. I will give you another definition now. You will spare your notes. Eh? This guy don't get magnetic brain. External information into the program memory, called cache. That is C-A-C-H-E, cache. Are we together? So if I want to program an app, all right, look up. I want to program an app that app will call my name Prosper. Let's say there is part of that app that will first of all display to the user Prosper, or Prosper is welcoming you, for example. Now the question is that Prosper, is it already in the program? The answer is no. So I have to what? Acknowledge it in the program memory so that the program can read it whenever I want to what? Use it. Now, if you go back to the definition I gave you, I said what? In JavaScript, variables are used to store what? And manipulate what? The data. So let's quickly look at what? Variable declaration syntax in JavaScript. Variable declaration syntax. Variable declaration syntax. Variable declaration. Syntax. Now, what do we mean by syntax in programming? We need to understand some of these terms. What do we mean by syntax in programming? Syntax are set of rules. We'll not start writing now. I think I read it from somewhere. Syntax are set of rules that governs code writing. Syntax are set of rules that governs what? Code what? Writing. So whether you are programming or coding with Python, you need to understand what? The syntax. Is that clear? Or should I further break it down? I should break it down. There is a pattern that is used to speak Igbo. Until you understand that pattern, you cannot speak Igbo, right? There is a, why am I defining Igbo? Let me start my own try. There is a pattern for speaking Isoko. All right? Until you have that pattern or you understand it, you cannot speak what? Isoko. If you try to speak Isoko without understanding the syntax, so you understand it, you bite your tongue. So in programming, what makes somebody to say that I can speak Python? It means you understand what? Python what? Rules. Coding what? Rules, which are also called what? The syntax. And most time, once you miss the rule, you will get an error. The problem we have with some upcoming programmers is that they are not law-abiding people. That is how it works. They end up cramming. Once you understand the syntax, you do away with what? Cramming. Cramming only comes in when you have forgotten what? The syntax. So how do we declare variable? Right. Variable has 3 parts. Variable declaration has what? 3 parts. So for you to completely have what we are calling variable, 3 distinct parts must be acknowledged. 1, the variable name parts. I want to be writing everything. Variable name what? Parts. 2, variable assignment parts. I'm going to break it down. Variable assignment parts. And the last part of a variable is a variable value part. Variable what? Value what? Parts. Am I communicating? Now let's go this way. Let's go this way. What we are saying is that what? If you tend to create a variable and you omit one of the parts, you will get a data type called what? Undefined. Undefined means what? You created a container, but you not put value inside. And every variable must have what? Value. It should not be what? Empty. Now, example, whatever I'm going to code now, you write it under that note as an example of what? Because I want to acknowledge these 3 parts. But this is the example. So let's say create a variable. Let me use tax way as if we are asking or they are asking us to do it. So write this statement, create a variable that stores my name. And that my name is going to be Prosper. That my name is going to be Prosper. Why? Because this name Prosper is part of the data I am going to use to develop the app. So the name, I will say, okay, my first name, first underscore name. This is the name part of the variable now. Equals to is the assignment. Remember I mentioned 3 parts, right? The variable name part and the variable what? Assignment and the value. Now, because I am storing a string in this variable, a string, which we are going to learn in a moment when I get to the data type, is what? A text. A text-based data type is called what? String. So because I am storing a string, we have to put it to what? In quotes, either double quote or what? Single is acceptable. Then before I type what? The Prosper. So now let me use my annotation to break it down. So the whole of this part is your what? Variable what? Name part. Why this assignment, this icon, sorry, this symbol, which is what? Equals to, In programming, single equal sign does not represent what? Equality. Instead, it represents an assignment, which means that what? The pipe that is used to convey the value into what? The container. Because at this moment, this is what? The container what? Name. Am I communicating? So this is the container what? Name. Now, a value must be catapulted into what? This container. And because we are still talking about variable, you can only store what? One value inside what? A container. What are you using to store the value inside the container? The what? The assignment operator. So this assignment, this icon, or this symbol in programming is called what? Operator. What type of operator it is? An assignment operator. Good. Prosper is the value. So these are the three parts that makes up what? Variable as a syntax. So if you just call first name equals to without putting this, you will get an error because you have not completed what? The rule of declaring what? Variable. Is that clear to us now? All right. Now, let's move on. Now, we have created variable. This is string variable. This is what? String what? Variable. So now a variable is noted down. A variable is named or is classified according to the type of value is holding or it holds. So why did I name this variable as what? String value? Can anybody decode it? Why are we saying that this variable under the variable classification, this is what? String variable. Because of what? What type of information is it holding? It's text, right? So if I come here now and say what? S equals to 80. What type of variable is this? This is what? Integer or what? Number what? Number or integer variable. We are going to talk about data type in a moment. So the type of value your variable is holding is used to classify it. What type? So let's quickly talk about what? Variable what? Standard naming in JavaScript. Variable standard naming. In JS. Variable standard naming rules. What are some rules you are to adhere to whenever you are naming your variable? Number one, when naming variable in JavaScript, rule number one, start with a letter or underscore. Don't start with number. Start with what? A letter or underscore. That is rule number one. When naming variable in JavaScript, start with what? Letter or underscore. So example, you can start with what? A to Z, or the letter between what? A to Z. So if I ask you now, did we adhere to the rule? Out of the two variables we have created, are we following the rule? Good. So you cannot come here and say your variable name is 90 equals to. Instead, start with what? Underscore 90 is acceptable. Are you following? Now, let's look at rule number two. Use letter, digits, or underscore. Use letters, digits, or underscore. So which means variable name can contain letters and number, like the one above. It must not start with what? The number. Rule number three, avoid reserved words. Avoid reserved words. Avoid reserved words. What does that mean? Reserved words are the keywords that has been used. They are the keywords that has been used. They are the keywords that has been what? Used. within the program. So you can't use them again. Just like this room now. I have been named Prosper in this room. If anybody comes in here and I say, okay, you Prosper. If anybody called Prosper now, there'll be what? Confusion. So that is what we are also trying to avoid. Say, for instance, even in Microsoft Word, when you are saving your file, you have used a particular name. You try using that same name. What do you normally get? File exists, right? And Microsoft Word is very even friendly. Do you want to this is how some person delete their file without and they'll be arguing that how can a whole me 10 years computer experience open my eyes and delete file? We'll be arguing with their boss. They don't know that when you override, when you use the same name, you can automatically what? Delete what? File. So that same rule is here. So for example, now I cannot use what? Let as my variable name. Because let is a keyword. Let is a keyword. Because you're supposed to have even used it to initiate your variable. So you are supposed to use what? Let first name equals to what? Or costs or var. We're going to talk about them later. These are variable what? Initiation what? Keyword. Words that are used to accompany, to establish, to recognize variable. So number 4, which is the last rule I want to give us, is what? Variables are case sensitive. They are case sensitive. So you will agree with me that what? These are not the same. Hope you know that. These are not the same. S equals to 80 and this X equals to 90. They are not the same. JavaScript is not going to say that what? S has been used. Why? Because this one is lowercase. Why this one is what? Uppercase. There are two different entities. Am I communicating? So bear it in mind that what? Variables are what? Case sensitive. So let's quickly discuss what? Our JavaScript output possibility. JavaScript output, so that we can display the result we have created so far. JavaScript output possibility. Or output functions. Or output function. So JS output methods / functions. So let me give us a summary of what this is all about. Anybody that code with JavaScript must at least understand one of these words, this output. Right, JavaScript provides several ways. JavaScript provides several ways to output data. JavaScript provides several ways to output data to the user. So what we are simply talking about is that now this is your development environment. This is just like your coding what? Back end. Now, users are expected to what? To see the result of your actions via what? The browser, right? So the question is that how will, so I'm using file server. File server is another equivalent to what? Live server. For outputting what? Just like a new version of what? Live server. 5 what? Server. So now let me show us the front end so that you know that the Prosper you stored in that JavaScript variable is not yet what? Visible to what? To the audience. So that is why we are now looking at, okay, how do we now display whatever we are storing in our variable to them to see? So you can see that what? Nothing is what? Being rendered. So which means that all this code that you have written here, all this code that you have written in JavaScript, they are still within what? JavaScript. The user cannot access them. So why I am bringing this display method so that you know how to say, okay, if I want to display what? Prosper. If I want them to see Prosper, how do you not output it? Because by default, it's not like HTML that once you create a tag like this, maybe H1, and then you just put what prosper there. It will just show once you render it on the browser. It will show like this. No, it's not like that. For JavaScript, you need to use one of the methods to command the content to display. So let's quickly look at some of them. So example of this method, right, number one, console output. Console output. So the first output method I want to explain is the console. Console. Console.log. Write it like this. It's a function. Console.what? Log. So what do we do with it briefly? Right. Console.log output data to the console. So there is a developer tool that is in every browser. This console is an element in a browser. It's a section that is acting as an IDE. Do you know that if you don't have, listen, if you don't have Visual Studio Code installed, you can just install a browser and do whatever you are doing with Visual Studio Code using what? The console. So the console plays the role of what? A browser. Sorry, an IDE. So if you are using it, it means that what? Whatever you are outputting with it will not be displayed here. Because the console is a kind of back end of a browser that you can only see when you right click and select what? Inspect. So, and where is the console here now? This is the console. So I can come here now and practice code. I can write HTML here if I don't have IDE installed. If I'm training online now and people are saying that they don't have maybe laptop, they want to use their phone to learn coding, then I can tell them to use what? Browser and use what? The console section. So what we are saying is that what? The prosper will be displayed here. This is where we are going to see it. In other words, we are not going to see it what? Here, because we are using a method that displays its output on what? Or in the console. So let me quickly particularize that. So let's look at now, the task is that we want to display prosper in the console.log. So what I'm going to do, listen, so I'll just come here, I will say what? Console dot what? Log. Console.log. And then supply what? The variable name, right? Because the value prosper is already stored in what? A variable. Is already acknowledged in the program. So all I need is just to call it from where I store it in the program. So I will just copy it here, Control C, and then come in here. You are not quoting it because it's a keyword at the moment. It's not a string. So if I want to run it, I cannot right click here and run it, right? I have to go to what? HTML before I can see it. Even though I have not created any element, I'm going to use HTML file to output it. So if I right click here and select what? Open with what? File server. So now I want to see it. Now, we cannot see the prosper, right? Who can tell us the reason why we cannot see the prosper? Because we display it with what? In the console, right? So let's inspect and check the console whether the prosper is here. Prosper is here. So quickly, before I attend to those people that are calling me, everybody should give me something like this.
You can go and so that is how to use console.what? Log as one of the JavaScript output method. We just add this note and then we move on from there to the next one. The console.log is only good for code debugging, not for real application. The console.log is only good for code debugging, not for application. What do we mean by code debugging? Can anybody explain that? to debug code. Means that what? To manage what? Errors, right? So manage errors. So we actually use this just for testing of our code. There are a couple of them like that are just for testing code. Maybe as a developer, you are trying to verify. So there is this key one that I want to close with, which is the one you should pay more attention to. Don't say because the console.log is very simple to apply, and then you devote all your time mastering it instead of you mastering the one that matters. Because if I ask you now, you notice that the whole of that item that was displayed was not created on any specific HTML content. Let's say you have H1 here. Is there any way you created an action on that, on any of the elements? No. You only use HTML document to output it. But the essence of us learning JavaScript is for us to be able to what? To build JavaScript on HTML elements. So how did you reference the particular elements that action is coming on? Using console.log, you will not be able to achieve that. So let's take the next one. Using inner HTML. This is the next output method. Using inner HTML. Using what? Inner. The inner is case sensitive. The HTML is what? Uppercase. Why the inner should be what? Lowercase. So this is the one that require what? In brackets, you write what? Require. So anytime you want to use this particular one, always know that it will ask for what? ID of what? An element. Always bear that in mind. If at all you want to use the inner HTML, remember that what? You must provide the HTML what? Element what? ID. So let's look at the full definition, right? Be conscious when using inner HTML to avoid security vulnerability. Just additional notes from the requirement that I gave to us. So now let's assume that here, let me create another variable Z, and this variable should be storing 70. We have a variable S storing 80. We have variable what? Z storing what? 70. And what I want to do with JavaScript is to create, is to multiply, or let's say create a calculator to multiply X and what? X and Z. That is the task. So now I'll go to my HTML to create, you can write your step that way, steps on how to implement what? The inner HTML what? Output method. Number one, go to your HTML file and create an element with an ID. So in this case, let's say I'm using this. Let's say I'm using p tag with an ID as an attribute, demo. And I am not adding any content here because I am going to be sending the content from where? From JavaScript. And what the content will be stored in what? In fact, the content that will be multiplied together, they are already in JavaScript inside what? Two variables, right? Okay. So all you need here is just to create this element. Why did I create this element? This element is just to output what? The calculation, the results
So this is where I am going to build the app. So let me clear this or convert it to what? To comments. So the calculator here, what we perform the calculator will be, I will start by creating a variable that will store the manipulated values. So I will say, okay, multiply, since the task says what? Multiply. So I will say, okay, maybe multiply is equals to, is a new variable that I'm creating. And what will this variable hold? The multiplication of what? S and what? Z. So I will just pass in what? X times in programming is what? Asterisk. Times what? Z. Now, anytime you are writing your JavaScript that will do with what? Multiple line, always end your code with what? Semi what? Colon, like this. So add it here. All right. So now, to output, to display the results. So in other words, as far as JavaScript is concerned, 80 is multiplied by what? 70. And the answer is here within JavaScript. But we want to use HTML element called what? ID to what? To output it. Are we together? So here, what I will now do, I will now say what? To display the result. To display the result. To display the results, I'll simply use that method, which says what? Document dot get element by, then the ID is a string. So you put it in what? In quote, demo. Then this particular element should be captured in that function, which means that what? You now concatenate, which means that what? Dot. So this dot is where you are collecting the whole of that what? Element in HTML. And then using what? This HTML what? Property. So while you concatenated this is to what? To call this with what? The ID assigned. Then what I'm going to do here, I will just say equals to, that is what? Right now, you should be seeing the whole of this as this. Right now, that does not have content. So now you want to pass in what? The content. So when you do something like this, equals to, and then you supply the name of what? The variable, you are automatically what? Passing the what? The result into what? That what? What you did here now equals to multiply, you have automatically what? Imputed it here, which you are supposed to type manually. Why this is the one that what? That is storing the whole of this element. How does he recognize it? By what? It's what? ID. So if I go to the browser now, I should see what? The result. What is the result? 5,600. So for any reason, if I alter, that is hard coding, if I alter this, if I change here to what? To 90, if I change here to 90, and I go back to the browser, it will update automatically. So this is where I am going to draw the curtain, because this is the first time, and I'll give us what? Classwork. So we are not taking anything home. It's classwork we are going to do. So I'll tell you what I want, and then you develop the function or the app. What we did now, the whole of this now, here now, is an app. It's an app. And what is the app doing? The app is calculating what? It's for calculation. Multiplying two values together and displaying the result to the users. So this is the user's end. Any question? So write down your classwork now, right? Write down the classwork. The classwork will enable you to master everything I've taught you today. Using JavaScript, develop the following apps. Using JavaScript, develop the following apps. Develop the following what? Apps. Number one. Number one, create an app that subtracts two variable values and output the result to users via web browser. Create an app that subtracts two variable values and display the result to users via web browser. Then the next one is create an app that displays to users my names are, you put your name, Egwero Prosper, and I am 80 years old. Create an app that displays to users my names are Egwero Prosper, and I am 80 years old. Note, use inner HTML JavaScript output method to display all your results. Use inner HTML JavaScript output method to display your results. Good luck. So you can start now.